Hey everybody, this is Thomas Tringham. I'm the Director of Marketing for M&R Companies. And today I'm going to speak with Torrey Valyou, and he has a company out of Vermont. So I haven't spoken with a lot of guys from the East Coast, so I think that should be entertaining. And he's sitting there in the middle of the forest. So I figure, well, I'm going to go ahead and let you kind of talk about yourself and your company. So why don't you kick that off?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. So my name's Torrey. My wife and I own New Dud Screen Printing Embroidery. We've been in business for 13 years now. Um, but we specialize in apparel, flat stock, and just recently embroidery.
Yeah, I was looking at your website. I do a little bit of prep for these things, and I'm trying to differentiate a little bit. And right out of the gate, I noticed, okay, we got some artists here somewhere in the mix, and so I think it'd be important out of the gate to kind of talk about how was it the chicken or the egg? Was it the art first that brought you to screen printing, or was it printing that brought you to the art? What's your take on that?
Yeah. So myself, my wife, and actually most of our staff all have art degrees. So I found screen printing at the University of Vermont. I was doing a lot of printmaking to begin with, and my last semester there, I fell into screen printing and was just like, wow, this is, I was an illustration focus in school, so it was a really great way for me to take all my illustrations and convert them to multiples. So right around then is when I thought, this is something I want to do professionally. And then I worked for a few other shops right out of college and kind of got some experience, and the whole time kind of thinking like, this is what I want to do. So kind of taking notes as we went along, and so we opened up in 2008. But yeah, art based for sure.
What was the moment where it sounds like from pretty early on when you were kind of got into printing and screen printing. What was the moment? Now, just to clarify, was it screen printing like posters and flat stock and reproducing art
Yeah,
pieces
yeah.
that
So
way?
it was. I mean, originally it was all art. I didn't know anything about fabric printing, so it was all just paper to begin with.
Okay. And what was the moment where you kind of just said, t-shirts, that's a good way to go, and then, kind of get into that? Or was it, you
Yeah.
said you started working with shops, but was
Yeah,
it,
yeah. So when I was working for those first couple other shops, I learned how to do the fabric printing then, and was like kind of had like ooh, this is like a nice way to take my art and make it a little more functional. Not just something you can hang on your wall, but something everyone can wear every day. So that's where we kind of switched our focus over to fabric, and kind of dove in pretty deep there.
and where now your wife is co-owner, correct?
Yep, yep.
Yep. And so was she out of the gate kind of, was it a together thing, or was it more of like you started kind of working for shops and then you kind of brought the idea home? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I was working for other shops, but we both kind of had this idea of kind of doing it together. From the very beginning, she was always kind of my editor and the ideas person behind the designs, and I would kind of execute the illustrations. But we both, from the very beginning, decided this was something we wanted to do together. And over the years, she's done some like sewn handbags and kind of cat toys and some other kind of fabric stuff that kind of meshed well with our retail product line. But the more we grow, she's kind of reintegrated back into like the custom printing side, and it's been like a really nice relationship. We're fortunate to be able to work really well together over the years, and so yeah, it's always been kind of a duo.
And that's a point I think I'd like to just dig into if that's okay. I mean, you know, just to speak to kind of a combination of both partnerships and then being in a relationship. Would you say it's because often what I see is I'll see people, I probably the vast majority people have kind of complementary skill sets to some degree. Like somebody handles maybe more of the back end, and somebody else handles more of the production,
Hmm.
or somebody handles more of the customer service, and somebody handles kind of like more of the sales or something like that. Is that similar with you guys, or do you guys kind of do a little everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been pretty important from the get go that we have our defined roles, so we're not stepping on each other's toes the whole time. But I mean, I've always been like the printer, the illustrator. I did a lot of the custom printing client work from the beginning, but she's always kind of handled like our online stores and our wholesale accounts, and now she's really into the ordering of all the blank garments for our custom printing stuff. So yeah, like I said, like the defined rules has really been something that's, crucial, because whenever we try to like do the same things, when we step on our toes and have little arguments here and there about how things are going to be handled. So
yeah, I bet, yeah, for sure, yeah. And do you guys, and this is maybe a silly sideways question, but do you guys have a rule where it's like no business zone starting now, or is it like it kind of spills over?
I think she would prefer, when we get, because we have 2 kids too, so when we get home, probably I talk about work a little bit too much past that, but being so ingrained in this together that it's often hard to shut it off. But the older our kids get, the more it's been like, get home and just have family time. But we're constantly, when we go on road trips, it inevitably always turns into hour-long business meetings, because we're just sitting there talking to each other, and it always comes back to business.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you guys are able to kind of navigate that and work together, because it's such an asset. It's such a great asset to have somebody to lean on and also support you, and then at the same time, deliver some good work. So that's
for sure.
That's a huge benefit. Can you walk us through maybe just a very quick timeline of when things happened for you, like either equipment wise or space wise? And I saw on your website that you just recently moved. So could you just give me a handful of milestones maybe that were important to you guys?
Yeah, sure. So we've actually moved way more times than I'd prefer. But it kind of speaks to our growth, even though we've been in business for 13 years. So in 2008, we signed our first lease for our first shop. It was about 1,200 square feet, and we started with an M&R 6'4" Chameleon and a little 6-foot brown Harco dryer. So I basically did all that printing for the first 5 years. So year 5, we hired our first employee. And shortly after that, we moved. So that was 2013. We moved to our second shop, and that was meshed together with buying our first auto, which was a reconditioned M&R. I think it's a 2001 6.8 Gauntlet RS. So we kept the brown dryer for that. So when we did that move, we ended up sharing a space with a friend of ours who was in like leather manufacturing. And we quickly realized that the amount of square footage we gained was not enough. So a year after that, we moved within the same building to another shop, which was 5,000 square feet. And at that point, we were up to 3 employees. While we were there, we got a Saturn and a 10 color Sportsman EX. And then let's see, so a year ago, January, we moved into our newest shop. It's 8,000 square feet. And then we got a 4-head embroidery machine, a single head embroidery machine, and actually we just signed the purchase order today for a Cobra.
Oh, beautiful!
So
congratulations!
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're gonna like those. It's such a efficient, quiet, quick press that I think you're gonna be really happy with it. I was fortunate to be involved in some of the development on that, and which you may have saw online, but it was it's such an exciting thing. Well, I definitely want to check in with you when that's all going to go down, and maybe, at the risk of, I don't want to go overboard on it, but why M&R from the beginning? Like, what were the decision points, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. So the 2 shops that I worked at were both using M&R equipment. The second shop I was at, we had like one of those 14 color Chameleons with the double deckers.
Yeah, that's a beast. I remember those. Yeah. Good sampling press, but it's
But I was on that almost all day. Like it was mostly a manual shop. So it was nice to be able to have like a lot of jobs set up at once. But so he had this old auto. I don't even know what brand it was. But it was like everything was like hand tools. There was nothing to there was no quick locks or anything like that. And just seeing like the difference between the manual versus this auto. I kind of knew from right there that M&R was kind of the way to go. And when we bought our Chameleon, that you could just see the difference in the machines. They're so rugged. And then I've always enjoyed that they're just so quick and easy to use. And then going from the Gauntlet RS to the Sportsman, like seeing all these new features, like the machines are just like there. I mean, my Gauntlet RS has like somewhere like 4.5 million impressions, and It
That's
just,
a couple. Yeah.
yeah, it's a workhorse, you know. I mean, it's a little bit louder and a little bit
Mhm.
clangier, but like, you know, we've replaced a few things on it, but they're just machines, man. They just run forever.
Yeah.
So,
That's nice. Well, yeah, and I appreciate that. Um, so what percentage of your work maybe is t-shirts versus posters versus hats and garments and that sort of thing? Like, do you split it
yeah,
up, or do you have a conscious concept of that, or is it order by
yeah,
order?
no, yeah, we're probably like 80%, you know, t-shirt, sweatshirt, stuff like that. And then probably 15% embroidery. Right now, been what's growing the fastest, just because it's the newest addition to our team. And then
Sure.
the flat stock is probably about 5%.
Oh, okay.
You know, that's something that we don't like push as hard,
Hmm.
um, but it's a nice added bonus. And you know, we work with a lot of cool bands and stuff, so it's kind of
Oh,
just
yeah.
like. I mean, a lot of our roots, you know, all of our employees did paper printing in college, so that's been kind of like our little pet project on the side that we all like to do. So.
Yeah. What's it been like on the East Coast? I know you're fairly close to New York, kind of sandwiched there. So, what's it been like for you with this whole past couple of months and this year being? I mean, I'm sure your beginning of this year versus the reality of this year is I don't think it's like anybody where that's been the same. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
what maybe just speak to that for a couple minutes if you wouldn't
Sure.
mind.
Yeah. I mean, so Vermont's a pretty small state, obviously. So, you know, we've been pretty fortunate with our numbers being pretty low. But also because we're so small, you know, we shut down pretty quick.
Hmm.
Um, so we were having like a really, really good first quarter. You know, we were like way ahead of last year's numbers. And then, you know, somewhere in March it hit and everything just came to a standstill. Email stopped. We had a bunch of cancellations. So it was pretty tough. But you know, things have smoothed out a little bit. Um, you know, and we're still down from last year. I mean, we had been growing. Like, yeah.
No, no worries, no worries.
um, so you know, we're still down a little bit, and thankfully, we have like one client who's got a retail shop that's just been doing really well, and because of him, he's been kind of floating us. But you know, without him, it would have been a much more tough year. Uh,
Yeah,
but yeah, the second quarter was pretty tough.
yeah, well, yeah, especially being in an area that's been shut down. Like that's what the degree to what you're shut down and the degree to where your customers are shut down. Obviously, that seems to be impacting people the most. Do you, what's your story in regards to how you've utilized social media, online stores? Because I mean, obviously, I've seen you guys sell a lot of your own or maybe other people's brands, correct? Um,
Yep, yep, yeah.
and so, what's the development of that been like for you?
So we've always been like, you know, on Instagram quite a bit. That's been our main social media stuff. But as far as the merch stores go, I mean, we've always sold our stuff. We started our company as just selling our own apparel. You know, I
Hmm.
came from a contract background, so when we started, it was going to be we're just going to print our own stuff and that's it. I'm not dealing with anything else. But you know, as things go, you know, people ask, well, can you print for me? Can you print for me? So we kind of switched to that pretty quick. Um, and we just recently, you know, maybe about 2 years ago, started dabbling with fulfillment kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so we kind of were growing that under the radar. So that was kind of one blessing from COVID is we had this background with fulfilling stuff for other people. So we were able to switch pretty quickly to offering that. You know, we do a little bit of like merch stores through Printavo,
Yeah.
but a lot of it is linking straight to people's Shopify accounts, keeping
Sure.
inventory on hand, and just completely taking care of their online stores for them, from inventory management to shipping to customer service.
Right.
So with that, you know, we've also seen like this need for it. So we actually have plans next year to take over the Suite Next Door to continue to go the fulfillment side of things as well.
Mhm.
So yeah,
That's nice. Yeah, I could see, and that actually maybe if you don't mind, I'm dig into that a little bit, like inventory, because whenever I'm thinking about your own brand, right, selling your own t-shirts, it always ends up being the kind of elephant in the room, so to speak, or the hopefully not elephant of garments in the room, but
yeah,
it's how do you handle, predict, estimate, manage, pre-print and all that, I mean, maybe speak to that a little bit because I think that would really help people because a lot of people that obviously there's this huge variety of people in different niches. I think most people that are in this business, especially that enjoy the art of it, would love to make their own shirt brand, but they're scared off by the inventory, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and dealing with that, and maybe they're not, maybe they're more artists and they're less numbers people. And I might be talking from a selfish standpoint because I've always had that. I have all these ideas. Who doesn't walk into your shop and say, I got the best idea. I
Yeah.
got the idea, man. This is the idea for a shirt line. It's gonna make $10 million. And
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, have you tested it or whatever, But
Yeah.
so anyways, not to be rambling on too much, but giving it that shape is just like, I think that's one of them, one of the pieces where people go, man, starting my own shirt line. I just can't get past that inventory. What do I do?
Yeah.
And what's your take on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the most important thing is keeping track of your inventory. I know that sounds like kind of silly, but just making
Not at
sure
all.
what you have on hand is actually what you have in your store listed. Because the worst case scenario is you get into these situations where you're selling things you don't have. So to be honest with the stores, we try to pick and choose people who are fairly established and who have like a certain amount of SKUs. And who are selling, pretty regularly anyway. But we usually have consultations with clients that are coming on and say, what's your volume like? Here's what we would prefer for you to have for inventory. We don't want 3 of each size. We want maybe a dozen or 2 dozen per size. Because you don't want to get into a situation where you're trying to keep up with the sales. You want to have everything there. It's the customer service just that much better. I mean, people are so used to Amazon and things going out, coming in so quickly that that's really the most important part, is focusing on that back end and making sure that everything's where it needs to be. Even if your stock is low, you need to reflect that on your back end as well.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me, there's the other side of it, which is probably the opposite side of inventory, which maybe I could just touch on just briefly, because I was struck by an example, and I think it was Tim Ferriss, where I don't know if you're familiar with Tim Ferriss's work,
No.
but he wrote a book called The 4-Hour Work Week, and I'm not going to digress too much here, but the point is he did a Google ad where he swapped out the Google ad for a variety of different viewers. So depending on when you logged on or where you logged on from, you might be served a different version of his cover of his book
Mm-hmm.
in this ad before the book was even really finished. And he, so he like tested with Google Ads which was the most popular title, cover, color, and different things. And
Mm-hmm.
what struck me about that is testing is such a kind of lost art form when it
Yeah.
comes to artists, right? Because we get so biased on our own work or what we like. You can get so hung up on what you like.
Mm-hmm.
And then inadvertently, you can also get hung up on only doing what the customers like.
Right.
And there's
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
be a spot in there. So I think that, I don't know if that makes sense as far as a question, but it's just like, I think there's a spot in there where, how do you navigate that, right? Like, how do you navigate I want to create something really original that really resonates, but I don't want to be married to my own idea, or you know what I mean? They say you don't want to go down with the ship, right? And then, or how do I just throw everything to the wind and just try to go after the money?
Yeah.
What are
I
your
mean,
thoughts on that?
it's certainly tough. You never know what people are gonna be attracted to. It could be the completely opposite of what you're making. Obviously having options helps, but when we were doing our brand, we used to do a lot of in-person farmers markets, artist
Yep.
shows and stuff like that. And that was really the best way because you're not only seeing what people are buying, but you're also getting the direct feedback from the customer of, oh, I like that, but if it was red, it'd be this, or whatever. Sometimes it's a little too brutally honest, but that interface with customers was really important for us to get going. But yeah.
That's a great point. And I think that's an excellent model because the two things I've heard is, the guy from Life is Good, and I'm totally blanking on his name, but he's just super famous. But you can find it on YouTube. Talks about the origin of Life is Good. Whether you've watched it or not, it's entertaining because he basically, is very kind of self-deprecating, and he says, we had no idea what we're doing, but we put up like 400 ideas on a wall, and then we invite people over for parties and just have them pick one.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, they just, and then after a while, they just kept picking this one guy, this one image in there. And then one lady said, hey, that guy looks like he has it all figured out. And then they were just kind of like, and then they just said, oh, well, okay, we'll put that on a shirt then. We'll try that. And
Yeah.
after 5 years of trying stuff that made like no money, all of a sudden that one sold to everybody, and
Yeah.
it just resonated. So it's like it's so difficult to really know what's going to resonate, but at the same time, at some point you got to ask people to take out their wallets and vote, right?
Yeah, for
And that's
sure. Yeah.
one of the best places to do it is a direct face-to-face experience, right? And that's where you get the best votes versus, sometimes online surveys or whatever. But
Yeah.
would you say, I mean, just switching gears real quick, would you say COVID was your biggest maybe hurdle that you had to overcome, or is there a bigger one?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest hurdle that was kind of just thrown at us, for sure. I mean, there wasn't much we could do about that. That kind of hit everyone. But we actually probably our biggest self-inflicted hurdle was
Hmm.
uh, we we tried cylindrical glass printing for a
Oh
little while.
wow. Huh.
Yeah, so we bought like a little semi-automatic cylindrical press a few years ago
Hmm.
because we have a lot of breweries who we print for. So we were like, well, it just makes sense. Let's just do glassware.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so we,
Yeah.
we invested into the press, and it had a UV curing unit.
Hmm.
And it just turned into like, I mean, we made some money off it, and it paid for itself, and we ended up selling it and buying the embroidery machines with the money. But it was way harder than we thought it was going to be. The variables in glassware and the inks, they smelled and they were so finicky, and
Oh yeah.
the margins were so slim. I mean, we outsource that stuff now, and we can buy it for cheaper than we could do it in house. So that was kind of like the biggest self-inflicted like whoopsie daisy. But
Well, in one sense, I always say, yeah, yeah, that's pain, right? That's just straight up pain. You're just like, man, and you get to a certain point and you're like, we've invested so much, we got to make the money back. When do we? And so, I mean, that's a whole nother topic on when do you pull the trigger and turn it off, right?
yeah,
Um, would you say that in respect to that, like diversifying from screen printing to embroidery or adding services, how do you know, like, how do you make that decision? Like, how do you decide when to add stuff? Is it just customer driven for the most part, or do you get together with your wife and kind of go, you know what, I think we should add wood carving, or something? I mean, is there how does it work in your company? Like, how
yeah,
do you come up with that?
yeah. It's been all pretty organic. Other than like the flat stock was really something that we had a passion that we wanted to go back and do some of that stuff. But like embroidery, we just outsourced it for years until the demand was high enough where it made sense to bring it in house. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, the apparel has screen printed apparel has always been our bread and butter, but it's always been like, okay, once we can see that this is a demand from our customers, let's bring it in and do it ourselves. So
Yeah. Just briefly, I want to talk about the process. So it looks like your designs and your process would be a good fit for water-based sinks. Is that something that you guys use, or do you have a specific favorite process that you guys use? Maybe just speak to your actual printing style that you like.
yeah. So we're actually primarily plastisol.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, okay.
yeah, we do water based, we do discharge. We do it all, but we're primarily plastisol. I'm a firm believer that if you're a good printer, you can get just about any effect from any kind of ink.
Hmm.
Uh, so we've been Wilflex for the entire 13 years.
Yeah.
We've got our set of water base that we use all the time. But it's kind of a job by job basis, depending on what kind of look and feel we're going for. But yeah, I love plastisol. I think that you can get just as soft a hand with it if you know what you're doing, and with the right mesh counts and the right reducers, and yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with the art too, in
yeah,
regards to designing for screen printing. Um, I've had that conversation with a fair amount of people, as far as uh, you get a lot of artists that'll bring in something and they're like, oh no, I got the art, and they'll bring it into you, and you go, you know what I'm saying, right? It's like, wait,
yeah,
that's a magazine cover, guys.
yeah.
CMYK for a magazine, it's already converted to halftone dots. Okay, we got to talk here. How much of that do you got? I mean, is most of your art generated in house, or do you get a lot of? Because you said you do a lot of work for bands too, so you must work with, their supplied art, right?
Yeah. I would say like probably 95% of the stuff is supplied. Um,
Oh, okay, okay.
we get, I mean, to the biggest part of the designing, quote unquote designing is helping with layouts or
Mm,
reducing a 6 color to a 3 color, a little bit of advice there. But
yeah.
A lot of the people we work with have designer friends or in-house design teams, especially like the breweries and stuff like that. They've got like good design teams in place already. So, granted, we're all artists in the office. We don't have to do it, which is kind of nice. We're not relying on having to create from scratch for people. But that said, we also see this huge variant of JPEGs to Word documents to really, really nice, already separated designs. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of always
I think my
dealing with.
favorite was I'm sorry, I think my favorite was a road sign. I had a person bring in an actual road sign for me to copy. And I was like, I can't fit that on the scanner, man. Like, what are they gonna do? And then they're like, well, the thing was that, and this is dating myself, but that was back before we had our cell phone with a camera on it and everything else. You had to actually take a picture with a camera and then bring it and get to, it was a mess. But we figured it out eventually. But, I would say tips and ideas for other printers. Like, so you're expanding, right? You just got a Cobra. That's super exciting, man. And so you guys got to be organized. You got to be doing some things. What are your thoughts? Do you talk to other printers that maybe aren't, maybe getting to the place where they can expand? Do you guys share information? How is it for you in regards to that? What do you have to say to people?
Yeah. We're always happy to share advice with people. When we first started in the industry, it was kind of secretive. No one really wanted to like share what they were doing. And, I really enjoy talking to other shops, even local ones down the street. I think it can do nothing but help each other. If you run out of ink and you're in a bind and you got a buddy with a shop down the road, hey, can I get a quart of white ink? So, there's tons of work, and obviously, shops are doing different volumes and stuff, but, I think probably some of the biggest advice I could give is have great communication within your business. So all your team members, make sure you've got processes that are going to work for everyone and everything's well documented. And then from a customer standpoint, just do what you say you're going to do. Don't be a jerk and be kind. Do what you say you're going to do and get the job done well. And then if you make a mistake, own up to it. No one wants to hear excuses when you mess something up. So that's really, I think, a big thing too, is, owning your mistakes and making it right. 'Cause as far as I'm concerned, we'd rather fix the problem, maybe lose some money, but retain the client. So
That's excellent advice, Torrey. It really is. Cause communication amongst your internal employees. I did consulting for a number of years and it was so common for me to come in and it was like islands. Do you know what I mean? There's an island with the art department, and then you'd have to leave the island, get in a canoe, and go across to the other island where the production folks are, and they got their spears and shields up towards the other island. You know what I'm saying? Like they're ready to kill the artists, and the artists are telling me those guys, they're ready to kill those guys. And especially in a medium-sized shop, if you're not careful, you can end up there, right? It also depends on the management and the story that trickles downward, but I think that's a huge piece. And the other things you were saying too are commitment to keeping your promise,
right.
And essentially when you take somebody's money to create an order, it's a promise that you're going to deliver. And especially if it's sometimes it's a faceless transaction, right? You're just sending a mail, but it's as much of a promise as somebody in person, right? I mean,
for sure.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal to people, just like, but they'd probably kick me under the table. Fortunately, there's nobody there right now, but if I didn't say, why Cobra, right? Like,
yeah, well, I mean, so
what were you thinking?
Yeah. So to be honest, in February, we were looking at the Gauntlet 3. We actually had one of the floor models lined up to take over. And then obviously COVID hit, and we had to back out of that at the last minute. But so we watched the webinar on the Cobra, and it seemed like exactly what we needed for our shop. I mean, the Gauntlet 3 looks amazing, but for what we're doing, we don't do a lot of like simulated process or anything like that. It just seemed like the perfect balance of Sportsman and Gauntlet 3, kind of that meshed together. We really liked like the no rise table. That was like a huge thing we wanted. But it just looks like the perfect press for our shop's needs right now. So Yeah, we're pumped. I can't wait. Looks like
I'm
about
excited.
November
I'm
11th.
definitely going to check in with you. I'm definitely going to check in with you and your wife
Yeah.
and recap this because it'll be exciting. And I want to see that. I want to get a video of the first shirt you got, or the first shirt order you got coming off of it because that'd be
All
super
right.
fun.
You got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but well, I want to respect your time today and let you get back to your gorgeous yard you got there and everything. And so how can people get in touch with you? And who knows, maybe they want to order something or maybe they want to learn from your business model because you got a really attractive website and Instagram. So I think you've
Thank
been
you.
doing a great job there. So how do you want people to reach out to you?
Yeah. Newduds.net is our website. We got a contact form on there. Hello at newduds.net is our contact. And then at newduds on Instagram. So
Okay,
yeah, what's up?
awesome. Okay, well, awesome. I'm looking forward to talking to you and stay in touch
Awesome.
and we'll recap it at a later time. All
Okay.
right.
Thanks so much, Thomas.
Oh yeah, thank you so much.